To teach a child that gender is fluid before they can even spell chromosome is not education, it's indoctrination.
We teach children about evolution, gravity, history, all complex, all nuanced. Why should gender be the exception?
Gender is not a costume. It's a code written in chromosomes, expressed through hormones, structured in bone, brain, and behavior.
Gender is not forged in DNA. It's forged in experience, language, and power. We are born with bodies, yes, but gender, that's assigned, repeated, performed.
Legal clarity, medical accuracy, psychological treatment all depend on linguistic precision. You can't defend women's rights if you erase the category woman. You can't study sex-based cancer rates under people with prostates.
Gender-neutral language is not about erasing identity. It's about including those who were erased for centuries.
This is Opposing Reason. Today, we enter the most volatile battlefield of the modern mind. Is gender real or a social illusion? One side argues that gender is hardwired into our DNA, a biological truth. The other sees it as a construct, flexible, evolving, and deeply personal. This is not just about identity, it's about power, about control, about who gets to define reality and who gets erased by it. In a time where pronouns ignite protest and policies reshape childhood, we ask, is truth determined by chromosomes or by choice? Question 1. Is gender determined by biology or shaped by society?
Gender is not a costume. It's a code written in chromosomes, expressed through hormones, structured in bone, brain, and behavior. When a child is conceived, the biological path is set, XX or XY. Not a spectrum, not a story, a fact. To say otherwise is not progress, it's denial. Every civilization, no matter how ancient, acknowledged the sexes. This wasn't ideology, it was observation. You don't need a theology to know what's male or female, you just need a mirror. Sociology may paint over the structure, but it doesn't replace the frame. Culture can modify roles, but it cannot rewrite biology. To claim gender is a pure invention is like saying gravity is a social expectation, ludicrous, the real danger. When we blur biological lines, we blur the very logic that keeps medicine, law, and language coherent.
Biology is the raw material, not the final sculpture. Gender is not forged in DNA. It's forged in experience, language, and power. We are born with bodies, yes, but gender? That's assigned, repeated, performed. Ask Judith Butler. From childhood, we're taught how to act male or female, what to wear, how to speak, what dreams are appropriate. It's not biology telling the girl she can't lead. It's the playground, the parents, the patriarchy. Why do hijras exist in India? Two-spirit people among Native Americans? If biology were so binary, why isn't humanity? Because gender is not universal. It's cultural. Biology is real, but irrelevant here. What matters is how societies sculpt identity, and who suffers when we pretend their truth is invalid. This is not science, it's politics, disguised as nature.
Question 2. Can gender identity exist independently of sex?
Let's be honest. This question only exists in an age where truth is treated as offensive. Gender identity, they say, is a feeling, an internal compass, a link from the body. But what happens when the compass ignores the terrain? If gender can flow free from sex, then why do sex-based medical treatments matter? Why are male and female athletic records still separated? Why do biology textbooks still exist? Because nature doesn't care about comfort. It functions, and in function, sex matters. Chromosomes are not opinions. Hormones are not negotiable. Yes, there are intersex cases, rare and real. But exceptions don't erase the rule. They prove it. You can't build stable societies on subjective truths. You can't raise children on shifting sands. And you can't rewrite evolution because it bruises egos. When we detach identity from biology, we don't gain freedom, we lose footing. We lose common language, shared standards, and even the ability to protect women's rights, which require sex-based recognition. In the name of empathy, we are erasing clarity. And clarity, in a world drowning in noise, is sacred. To separate identity from sex is to separate the map from the territory. Gender identity without biological sex is like a shadow without a body, a concept floating in abstraction. Yes, feelings matter, but feelings don't form skeletons. A heart doesn't beat because of how you identify, it beats because of what you are. Science is not cruel, it's neutral, it observes, it records. And across all mammals, including us, sex is the anchor. Without it, identity becomes untethered and society follows. Let me be clear, you can express yourself freely. But when expression tries to rewrite the human template, confusion becomes a doctrine and clarity becomes taboo. The human body is not oppressive. Reality is not hate. Truth does not bend to comfort.
What's truly dangerous is pretending biology explains identity. If gender were just sex, then tomboys wouldn't exist. Effeminate men would be wrong. And every culture would see gender the same way. But they don't. The Bugis in Indonesia recognize 5 genders. The Navajo have Nadli. Human expression is not bound by binary chromosomes. It's shaped by meaning. Gender identity is the soul's language, not the body's barcode. Science may explain parts, but identity is a poem, not a formula. Dysphoria cannot be scanned. Transition is not delusion. It's restoration. To suggest otherwise is to ignore decades of psychological, anthropological, and medical research. It's to dismiss the lived experiences of millions. Gender identity exists independently because it has to, because the body is sometimes a prison, and the mind is the only escape. You say clarity, I say compassion, and sometimes they must collide. And yet, people exist who defy that truth, beautifully, painfully, undeniably. Can you explain a trans woman's sense of self with a microscope? Can a blood test capture dysphoria? Gender identity is not biology's echo. It's a psychological landscape, not a genetic blueprint. It arises from consciousness, emotion, culture, trauma, and yes, sometimes rebellion. Is the mind less real than the body? If identity were just flesh, would love, shame, pride even exist? People are not puzzles solved by anatomy. To live as once felt gender is not delusion. It's survival. Gender identity, divorced from sex, is not chaos. It's courage. And to deny it is not science. It's fear.
Question 3. Does gender fluidity threaten traditional structures or liberate individuals?
Let's not sugarcoat it. Gender fluidity is a cultural experiment with unknown consequences. Traditions are not cages. They are scaffolds, structures that stabilize identity, family, and society. You don't build civilization on shifting ground. You don't teach children stability through ambiguity. Gender fluidity doesn't just blur roles, it erases them. Fathers become optional. Motherhood becomes abstract. Language collapses under endless pronouns and institutions lose coherence. Every species relies on roles for survival. Wolves have alphas, bees have queens. Fluidity in nature is rare, and when it appears, it signals disruption, not order. You want liberation, then offer clarity. You want mental health, then stop glorifying confusion. This isn't rebellion, it's cultural sabotage wrapped in empathy.
No. What threatens society is rigidity masquerading as order. Traditional gender roles were built in times of property, patriarchy, and power imbalance. They served hierarchy, not harmony. Gender fluidity doesn't destroy structure. It rebuilds it, with freedom at the core. A child who sees that identity can shift, evolve, breathe, learns authenticity, not confusion. They're not trapped in pink or blue. They're exploring humanity. And let's talk mental health. Rates of anxiety and depression plummet when trans and non-binary people are affirmed, not rejected. So who's really protecting society, the one clinging to roles, or the one opening doors? Gender fluidity is not chaos. It's adaptation, and adaptation is survival. Nature doesn't punish fluidity. It rewards resilience. And what's more resilient than becoming who you truly are?
Question 4. Should children be taught that gender is fluid?
Children are not test subjects. They are learners, vulnerable, impressionable, developing. To teach a child that gender is fluid before they can even spell chromosome is not education. It's indoctrination. Let them climb trees, draw dragons, ask questions. But do not hand them ideological burdens before they've even formed stable identity. Gender, by nature, is a developmental anchor, not a canvas to be endlessly repainted. When we tell 5-year-olds that gender is a spectrum, we're not expanding their minds. We're fracturing their foundation. Why do we separate fact from fiction in every subject except this one? Fluidity may comfort adults, but it confuses children. Protect their innocence. Don't politicize it.
We teach children about evolution, gravity, history, all complex, all nuanced. Why should gender be the exception? Children are not as fragile as we pretend. They ask why more than anyone. They explore, question, imagine, and in that curiosity lies their strength. To teach gender fluidity is not to demand identity. It's to affirm possibility. It's saying, you are not wrong, no matter who you become. And the data? Children in affirming environments report better mental health, lower rates of suicide, and stronger emotional intelligence. We're not forcing ideology. We're offering vocabulary for self-understanding. The world they inherit will not be black and white. Why should their lessons be? To fear fluidity is to fear freedom.
Question 5. Is the push for gender-neutral language progress or linguistic chaos?
Words are not toys. They're architecture. Strip the foundation and the building falls. Gender-neutral language may sound modern, but it's a linguistic revolution with no blueprint. What began as empathy has morphed into an endless reconfiguration of grammar, logic, and shared meaning. Let's be clear, they is plural. It always has been. When we start calling singular individuals they, we don't just confuse the sentence, we confuse the speaker, the listener, and eventually the law. Legal clarity, medical accuracy, psychological treatment, all depend on linguistic precision. You can't defend women's rights if you erase the category woman. You can't study sex-based cancer rates under people with prostates. The irony, in trying to include everyone, we risk protecting no one. Language is evolution, yes, but it's also utility. Fire doesn't become safer when we rename it heat object. Biological sex doesn't disappear when we call it a sign at birth. We're not building bridges, we're fogging them. Language shapes reality, and we are mutilating both in the name of inclusion. Gender-neutral language is not clarity, it's clutter. Replacing he and she with they might feel polite, but it carves confusion into every sentence. Language is not a toy, it's a tool, and tools must function. For thousands of years, language evolved to reflect biology, social roles, reproduction. It wasn't hateful, it was accurate. When a surgeon says she or he, it can mean life or death. When a statistic says women, it protects female rights. If we replace that with a sea of they, we dilute meaning. And meaning matters. You don't make language better by making it blurry.
And yet, language has never been fixed, only enforced. English once used thou. It vanished. Ms. was once radical. Now it's standard. The resistance isn't about grammar. It's about discomfort with inclusion. They has already been used for singular reference since Shakespeare. This isn't chaos. It's correction. Gender-neutral terms don't erase biology. They challenge dominance. They ask, must we always define identity through reproduction? Is a person's dignity less valid if it doesn't conform to the binaries of biology? More than words, this is about visibility. Every they, them, uttered is a life acknowledged, a shame lifted, a silence broken. If science evolves, why shouldn't syntax? Progress demands friction. And language, like humanity, expands by resisting the cage, not by reinforcing it. Linguistic evolution is not mutilation, it's survival. Language has always changed. It shifted for technology, democracy, feminism. Why should gender be immune? Words like fireman became firefighter. Mankind became humanity. Not chaos, progress. Gender-neutral language is not about erasing identity. It's about including those who were erased for centuries. Clarity? Ask a non-binary teen what it means to hear they and feel seen. We're not destroying grammar. We're expanding dignity. Language isn't fixed. It reflects who we are and who we choose to become. And if that evolution feels uncomfortable, good. Growth usually does.
Question 6. Are gender roles oppressive or essential?
Let's stop pretending that the erasure of gender roles is progress. It's erosion disguised as virtue. Every functioning system has structure. In biology, in architecture, in society. Gender roles weren't dreamed up by patriarchs in ivory towers. They emerged through repetition, survival, and necessity. Do you know why testosterone exists? Because someone had to fight. Why estrogen? Because someone had to hold the tribe together. This isn't prejudice, it's programming. Aristotle once said, nature does nothing in vain, so why do we? Strip away gender roles and what do you get? Disoriented boys with no rites of passage. Young women with identity but no roots. You want equality? Fine, but don't confuse equality with sameness. We can have equal dignity without identical function. Gender roles aren't cages. They're archetypes, and humanity needs myth as much as it needs logic. Gender roles have survived because they work. They are not chains. They are coordinates. Markers passed down to navigate life's chaos. Men lead, women nurture. Not because of oppression, but because of millennia of adaptation. You don't undo evolution with a TED Talk. This isn't about who washes the dishes. It's about biological specialization. Testosterone fuels risk. Estrogen promotes bonding. Nature is not sexist. It's strategic. When we tear down roles, we don't liberate, we destabilize. Boys drift. Girls ache for clarity. Society softens into mush. We must ask, what have we built by destroying roles? A more equal world or a more confused one?
No, gender roles are myths wrapped in ritual. They may feel natural, but they're learned. A girl handed a doll at age 2 isn't making a choice. She's being scripted. What we call essential is often just convenient for those in power. Roles reduce people to tasks. They erase nuance. What of the nurturing father? The fearless woman? Where is their place in your template? Oppression wears many masks. Sometimes it smiles and calls itself tradition. True freedom is rewriting the script, not obeying the one we're handed. We don't need roles. We need room. That myth you worship, it's a blueprint for control. The idea that boys must conquer and girls must cradle is not sacred. It's scripted. And scripts serve the director, not the cast. You say nature made us this way. But if nature were sovereign, why have societies evolved? Laws changed, boundaries blurred. Simone de Beauvoir didn't just critique gender. She dismantled its illusions. One is not born, but rather becomes a woman. That's not poetry. That's prophecy. Gender roles reward conformity. Step out of line, and suddenly the system labels you broken, deviant, unnatural. Essential? No. Convenient for power? Absolutely. We don't owe tradition our obedience. We owe the future our courage. Roles are for scripts. Humans improvise.
Question 7. Is denying gender binary science or ideology?
This isn't a debate. It's a delusion war. Biology doesn't care about your feelings. Chromosomes aren't up for reinterpretation. XX and XY, the blueprint is older than language. To deny the binary is to deny the very fabric of life. Look at any sexually reproducing species. You will not find gender-fluid fish debating pronouns in coral reefs. The binary exists because it works. And yet here we are, being lectured by ideologues wielding sociology degrees like scalpels, dissecting reality until nothing remains but identity. Is there a variation? Of course, but exceptions don't dismantle the rule, they affirm its strength. You want to rewrite the foundations of biology? Fine, just don't pretend it's science. It's faith, dressed in progressive drag. Science is observation, ideology is projection. And right now, we're projecting ourselves into madness.
What you call madness, I call awakening. Science is not sacred scripture. It evolves. We once believed the sun revolved around the earth. Now we revolve around outdated gender dogma pretending to be fact. The human brain is more complex than a gene chart. If gender were only chromosomes, why would intersex people exist? Why would brain scans show transgender individuals reflecting the identity they claim? And let's not forget, science isn't immune to bias. History is littered with scientific truths used to justify racism, sexism, colonialism. Truth twisted in service of power. We are not erasing reality. We are expanding it. Galileo was once called a heretic too. Today, the heretics say gender is not binary. Tomorrow, they'll be the ones in textbooks.
Final clash.
Let's not pretend this is a harmless debate. When you erase gender, you erase order. This isn't compassion, it's chaos in costume. You don't liberate a society by severing its roots. You starve it. You watch it rot. And while you're celebrating the fluidity of everything, predators adapt faster than ideals. Biological reality doesn't ask for your vote. It demands your reckoning. This isn't just about pronouns. It's about truth. And when you warp truth to fit feelings, you don't get freedom, you get fiction. Nature is not interested in your progress. It survives. Will you?
No, what you call order is just obedience dressed as destiny. Truth isn't carved in DNA. It's constructed, contested, reclaimed. When a girl says, "I'm not a girl," and stands firm, that's not confusion. That's revolution. We are not rewriting nature. We are rewriting the cage you called nature. This isn't erasure, it's emergence. The binary didn't fall. It was never real. It was just louder than everything else. You want clarity? Then listen to the voices you tried to silence. We are not the end of civilization. We are its correction.
Where do you stand? Do you trust chromosomes or consciousness? Comment your side below, not because you have to, because if you don't, someone else will define reality for you.